to a Skylark by P.B. Shelley, presented to you by Dr. Vinamrita. To a Skylark is one of the poetries written by the younger generation of romantic poets, that is P.B. Shelley. And when talking about To a Skylark, we must not forget To the Skylark by Wordsworth or Ode to the Nightingale by Keats. All these three poetries can be read parallelly, and I have made separate videos on the mentioned poems, so you can go and find out in the playlist. Now, coming to this particular poetry, let's first start with the introduction to the poet. P.B. Shelley, Percy Bysshe Shelley, born on 4th August 1792 to 8th of July 1822. He is one of the younger generation of the English Romantic poets and is considered as one of the greatest lyric and philosophical poets in the English language. But during his lifetime, he could not achieve the desired fame, and he got fame only after his death, that is posthumously. Main reason for declining to publish his work was the fear of being arrested for either blasphemy or sedition, because Shelley's works were beyond his time and were of a revolting nature. That is the general tendency of all the romantics. And Shelley was very philosophical in his bent of mind, and he was very close to writers that included Lord Byron, Keats, Leigh Hunt, Thomas Love Peacock, and his own second wife Mary Shelley. Mary Shelley, who is the author of the famous Frankenstein. He was also close to some of the very and most progressive radical thinkers of his day. That is William Godwin, who is also Shelley's father-in-law and father of Mary Shelley. Plus, he was also close associate with Leigh Hunt. Shelley is best known for his classical poem, and his famous poetries are Ozymandias, Ode to the West Wind, To a Skylark, Music, When Soft Voices Die, The Cloud, and The Mask of Anarchy. His other major projects include groundbreaking verse drama, which is The Cenci, and it was published in 1890, and a long visionary philosophical poem such as Queen Mab. He is also famous for Alastair, The Revolt of Islam, Adonias, Prometheus Unbound, which was published in 1820. So these are the major works and an introduction to Shelley. Let's move on to the poetry. About the poem. The poem was written in the late June 1920. It is said that Shelley was inspired by an evening walk in the country near Livorno, Italy, while he was with his wife Mary Shelley, and there they heard the song of a skylark, which influenced Shelley into writing this poetry. The bird's song brings joy and freedom. The song is pure and sublime. It gives a sense of pleasure to the poet, and Shelley compares the bird to n number of things. He uses the metaphor and simile of a spirit, a cloud of heaven, a rose, a star, a maiden, the planet Venus, and many such things. He calls the skylark to be a blithe spirit, the heavenly body. So, for him, skylark is something beyond this world, something heavenly, something spiritual. And the main theme of the poem is the focus of eternal beauty, joy, and freedom, which he finds in the song of the skylark. The structure of the poem. The poem has been composed in 21 stanzas, and it is a long poetry of handsome amount, and each stanza has got 5 lines. The meter which it follows is that the first 4 lines are in trochaic trimeter and the 5th is in iambic hexameter. And we must not forget this point, that any iambic hexameter, any line which is written in iambic hexameter, is also called an Alexandrine. The rhyme scheme of each stanza is A B A B B, and there are total 105 lines in this poetry. Coming to the poem. Hail to thee, blithe spirit, bird thou never wert, that from heaven or near it purest thy full heart, in profound strains of unpremeditated art, higher, still higher, from the earth thou springest like cloud of fire, the deep blue thou wingest, and singing still thou store, and soaring even singest. So you see, in these first two stanzas, poet is comparing the skylark to a spirit, a blithe spirit. It is born from heaven, that is always there in the heaven, and from heaven or near it, somewhere from the sky, it pours out its heart, it pours out the song which is full of profound strains of unpremeditated art. It is so skillful, the art, the song which the skylark creates is so skillful that he compares it with grave, strong thoughts. And he says that the skylark goes to the heaven or sings from the sky only after rising from the earth. So from the earth it springs and goes up higher and higher, just like a cloud of fire. So again here it is a simile where the skylark is being compared to the cloud of fire, and it goes into the deep blue with the wings of the skylark, which is also becoming one with the sky and gives a deep hue color, and it keeps on singing and soaring high and soaring high and singing vice versa. In the golden lightning of the sunken sun, over which clouds are brightening, thou dost float and run like an unbodied joy whose race is just begun. The pale purple even melts around thy flight, like a star of heaven in the broad daylight. Thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight. Again you see, the different hues of the sky are mentioned. Earlier the sky was said to be blue. Now the sky is giving a golden light because the sun is sinking. So it is the time of the dusk, and at the time when the sun is sinking, the sky is full of this golden aura, and the clouds are brightening because of the reflection of the sun. And in that clouds, among those clouds and that sky, the bird is floating and running, actually flying. And it seems that although the day is ending now, but for the skylark, the joy or the race has just begun. The pale purple even, again, now the even more duskier the time becomes, and the sky is being compared to be given a different color, that is the color purple, and as if the color purple is melting around the flight of the skylark. So the skylark can be seen, and around it the purple color can be seen, and it is giving such a hue that skylark looks like the star of heaven. The star of heaven means she is being compared to Venus, because Venus is the first star which is visible after the day falls down or after the dusk. So it is the star of heaven, and the star of heaven is also the first star that can be seen in the morning. So in the broad daylight the skylark can be seen. Thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight. And when it is not even seen, at times the skylark is not visible in the sky, but the music is still being able to reach the ears of the poet. Keen as are the arrows of that silver sphere, whose intense lamp narrows in the white dawn clear, until we hardly see, we feel that it is there. Although earth and air with thy voice is loud, as when night is bare from one lonely cloud, the moon rains out her beams and heaven is overflowed. What thou art, we know not. What is most like thee? From rainbow clouds there flow not drops so bright to see, as from thy presence showers a rain of melody, like a poet hidden in the light of thought, singing hymns unbidden till the world is wrought. To sympathy with hopes and fears it heeded not. So you see, first it was the first it was the dusk that the poet was talking about, and then the rising. And he says that when the rising of the sun takes place, the silver sphere obviously it is the moon. The moon is because silvery in color and in the shape of a sphere. So he says that the silver sphere, and from it comes like arrows the intense lights. The moon is like a lamp, and it is throwing out different arrows, different hues of light, which is becoming now narrowing, because the intense lamp is now narrowing. Why? Because now it is becoming clear. The dawn is coming to forefront. So the white dawn is clear, the sun is now rising, and we cannot hardly see it anymore. We can just feel it, the moon, that it is there. The silver sphere, the moon, is now just felt but cannot be seen anymore, because after the dawn, after the rising of the sun, the intense arrows of the sphere or the moon is gone. But still at this time, the sound of the skylark can be heard. All the earth and air, throughout the earth and the air means in the heaven and below, everywhere the voice of the skylark is heard. So the skylark is singing at the night also, when the night is bare and only one lonely cloud is in the air, or when it is in the morning. The moon rains out her beams and heaven is overflowed. So we start from dusk, we move on to the morning, and then we again come to the night. Throughout the day and night, when the moon is out, when the moon is gone, in both the cases, skylark's voice can be heard from the heaven. And the poet is questioning as to who this bird is, what it is. I don't know what you are, what is it to be a skylark. But it is sure that the poetry, the melody of the skylark is so bright, as if it is a rainbow. From rainbow clouds there flow not drops so bright to see, as from thy presence showers a rain of melody. So he is comparing the melody of the skylark to rain, and he says that when rain is pouring down, when there is rainbow and rain is coming down, that rain or that pouring is nothing when compared to the pouring of the music of the skylark. So the skylark's melody is even more better than the pouring of the rain. And then he says, he compares the skylark to a poet. It is like a poet who's hidden in the light of thought. It is so thoughtful, it is so meaningful, the song of skylark, that he seems that there is profound amount of wisdom in the song of skylark. And it keeps on singing hymns unbidden till the world is brought to sympathy with hopes and fears it needed not. So the sense of hope is found in the poetry of skylark, or in the song of skylark. So skylark somewhere or other shuns away our fears and gives us a kind of hope. The world till now was a mid-sphere, and after listening to the song of the skylark, it is full of hope. Now, like a high-born maiden in a palace tower, soothing her love-laden soul in a secret hour, with music sweet as love which overflows her bower, like a glow-worm golden in the dell of dew, scattering unbeholden in aerial hue among the flowers and grass which screen it. So you see, for now, first he was comparing the skylark to the spirit of the sky, then to clouds, then to moon, then to now we are coming to a poet, and now we are coming that the skylark is being compared to a maiden who is love stricken, who is in her palace, and she is soothing her love laden heart in a secret hour when she is singing love songs, and it is overflowing the garden, the bower of the palace, because of the song of the maiden. And now, like a glow warm golden in a dell of dew, scattering unbeholden its aerial hue. Again, the skylark is compared to a glowing worm, a kind of worm, a creature which gives out golden hues. So that is again compared to skylark, and the skylark's song is compared to the golden color of the various insects which spread their hue throughout the sky, and nothing can be hidden from it. It fills the flowers and the grass and everything. And then, like a rose embowered in its own green leaves by warm winds deflowered, till the scent it gives makes faint with too much sweet those heavy winged thieves. And again, now the skylark is being compared to a rose which is hidden. It is in the form of a bud, then at that time it is hidden in its green leaves, and when it is, because of the action of some worm, that it is deflowered and it becomes a flower and it starts giving its scent. So that scent of the rose, the aroma of the rose is compared to the song of the skylark, and how the aroma of the rose fills the whole of the garden, and it is such a strong aroma, such a sweet smell, that even the heavy winged thieves, means obviously the insects which are pollinating the flowers, they are being compared here to the thieves who are actually trying to steal pollen grains from one flower to another, and in that course pollinating the flowers. They are also full of the sweet scent of the rose, and so much so that they are on the verge of fainting. In the same way, the song of the skylark is so much intense that it makes us a kind of it makes our senses lull down to sleep actually. And the sound of vernal showers on the twinkling grass, rain awakened flowers, all that ever was, joyous and clear and fresh, thy music doth surpass. And he says that the music of the skylark surpasses everything. The sound of the vernal showers, or the twinkling grass, or the flowers which are awakened through the showers, that is the rain. So everything, any joy which we find around in the nature, when it compared to the song of the skylark, the song of the skylark is more joyous, more clearer and fresher. Now, teach us, spirit of bird, what sweet thoughts are thine? I have never heard praise of love or wine, that panted forth a flood of rapture so divine. So he says that nor love, nor alcohol or wine or any intoxication, and the praises bestowed on, there have been many poetries composed on love and on wine, and he says that no such song is as sweet and as intense as the song that you sing. So from where do you bring such thoughts? So such sweet thoughts which are yours should be taught to us, so that we can also become one with the divine song, the flood of rapture. Your song is flooding everything, it is rupturing everything. So it cannot be held back, it is with such a force. So that divinity should be taught to everyone. Chorus, hymeneal or triumphal chant, matched with thine would be all, but an empty want, a thing wherein we feel there was some hidden want. So anything, be it a song of a marriage, hymeneal means marriage, so be it a chorus sung in a marriage song, or a chant of a triumph of some king or queen, whatever, anything, any music, when compared to the music of the skylark, is empty, is hollow, is want, because a thing wherein we feel there is some hidden want in everything. And if it is a triumphant chant or a chorus hymeneal, a marriage song, a song of love or a song of wine, everything is wanting something, lacking something, but only the song of skylark is full, is not lacking anything. What objects are the fountains of thy happy strain? He is questioning the skylark, question mark. What fields or waves or mountains? What shapes of sky or plain? What love of thine own kind? What ignorance of pain? So he says that the song of skylark is free of pain, it is so joyous. So from where has she learned such a happy strain? From where has she learned to sing such a beautiful song which is free from any sad or melancholic thoughts? From where has she gathered it? From fields, waves, mountain, sky, plain? From where? With thy clear, keen joyance, languor cannot be. Shadow of annoyance never can come near thee. Thou lovest, but never knew love's sad satiety. So he's saying that the song of Skylark is so clear and full of joy that there is no shadow of annoyance or depression or any kind of sadness which even touches the song of the Skylark. So the skylark is also a lovebird. It loves, but the love generally, the love of a lover is generally accompanied by some kind of sadness, some kind of melancholy, because at times they are unable to unite, or at times because of the parting in love they are sad. But here the love song is also free from sadness. The love song of Skylark is also full of joy. Waking or sleep, thou of death must deem things more deep and true than we mortals dream. Or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream? Question mark. We look before and after and pine for what is not. Our senseless laughter with some pain is fraught. Our sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thought. So he says that human beings are always full of worry. They keep on worrying, what is going to happen next? What is going to be in our future? Are we going to attain the pleasure and money and everything that we want from life? And we forget the harsh reality of life, that is death. Death the leveler. Death is something which is eternal, which is going to come, which is the only fate of every mortal being. So he says that the Skylark is the only one who remembers this, who keeps death in mind while composing poetry. So if you are aware, or when you are ready to accept the reality, you will never be sad. That is the drawback of human beings. They are not like Skylark. They keep on pestering, full of sorrow, worrying about the future, not accepting this fact that whatever future may be, there is only fixed future, that is death. And he says that even the songs which has been composed by the poets, the sweetest songs that people have composed are those that tell of saddest thought. That is the tendency of human nature. Yet, if we could scorn hate and pride and fear, if we were things born not to shed a tear, I know not how thy joy we ever should come near. Better than all measures of delightful song, better than all treasures that in books are found, thy skill to poet were, thou scorner of the ground. So he says that the Skylark is nowhere near the ground. It is a heavenly body. It is the scorner, someone who scorns at the ground. Why? Because it has risen up from the worldly desires. It has risen up from the worldliness which has been bogging down all human beings. So he says that whatever the treasures are found in the books, all those treasures together cannot surpass the song of the Skylark. The Skylark song is the true, real experience of the world. It is the true, real, profound wisdom, profound knowledge, which when one realizes, there is nothing more to know. Because the Skylark song is something which is eternal, which is full of joy, which has got no sadness. Why? Because it is not having any hate, nor pride, nor fear, and it is not born to shed a tear. Because it has realized the truth of the world, that is the eternal truth, that is the death. Once you realize it, once you accept it, once you realize that the world is nothing but a stage and we are mere puppets, that's fine. That will give you the eternal joy of the world. So that is the last stanza. Teach me half the gladness that thy brain must know. Such harmonious madness from my lips would flow. The world should listen then, as I am listening now. So the Skylark becomes the muse for the poet, for Shelley. Shelley feels and asks the skylarks, begs the skylarks to give him with the same wisdom that the skylark possesses, so that the poet will also be able to compose such song which is full of harmonious madness. It is a kind of oxymoron here, a madness but full of harmony. Then only when his brain is filled with such balance, where there is harmony also and madness also, and at that time and that position, when his mind is at peace, his brain is at peace and it is full of gladness, at that time from the lips the poetry which will be composed by the poet will become eternal. And just like the poet is now listening to the song of the skylark, in the same way the whole world would be listening to the poetry composed by the poet, by Shelley. Summarizing the poetry, the song of the skylark is full of joy and inspires the poet. It is the true venture of a romantic poet, infused with several metaphors for the bird. On the other hand, the bird herself is the greatest metaphor for poetic expression and inspiration for the poet. Poet wants to learn sweet thoughts from the skylark. The wisdom that skylark's song possesses is much more a treasure than all the wisdom of the books. Keats is surprised at the happy note of the skylark, thinking that mortals compose nice verses only when they are grief-stricken, and they keep on pining throughout their life. How come skylark is free from all the sorrows and has mastered the act of being happy always? Poet wants to learn it from skylark. Poet feels that the bird has the ability to infuse the poet with such inspiration that from his lips would flow out commendable verses. He would compose such a poem that the whole world would listen to the poet and praise him for his poetry. So that is all about it. And while talking about Shelley's Skylark, we must not forget Keats's Nightingale or Wordsworth's Skylark, because they have a close resemblance with one another. And one of the quotes from Shelley Skylark, on which we will end this video lecture, that is, our sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thought. So that was all about this poetry. I am sure you must have understood it. If yes, then please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment. Thank you.